Hello. Hello, it's Thursday. I've got a bit of an odd episode. For you today. So here I have a 1.5 pound tub of those melty beads. I think they're called perler beads, but you melt them with an iron and you can form different images with them. So as you can see here, I have a lot of different colors sort of all mixed in together, and they're all tiny, tiny little beads, each one with a hole through it that's actually the perfect size for yarn to fit through. Anyway, so recently I was messing around with them and I made what might be the most superior fidget toy that you can imagine. Now, it might not look like much on camera, but believe me when I say that this thing is magical. And it got me thinking, right? If you can like weave little kind of pieces of almost fabric with these beads, then maybe we can crochet with them. So I have a couple of different approaches that I like to try, and we're just gonna have to sort of run with it and see what works and what doesn't. Okay, so first up, I know I'm at risk of some of you seeing this and it accidentally becoming the main character of this video, so I'm gonna do a very, very quick run through of how I made it. Okay, so to make the little square, we need some beads. Some thread, and you're going to need quite a long piece of this because if you look at this, the piece of thread goes sort of up and back and up and back and up and back. So I'm going to take about 40 centimeters today, just because I'm only going to do a little one to show you what's up. And you're also going to need a needle that fits through your bead. I would love to be using a giant plastic needle for this, but sadly it does not fit. Please keep in mind that I'm just showing you how I made this. I'm by no means an expert in beading. So I'm going to thread my first bead on, and I'm just going to like work through that twice to kind of like almost knot the thread. So it's like a little anchor bead. Then I'm going to thread on 3 more beads, and that's going to form our foundation row. So that brings us to row 2, where I'm going to thread the first bead on, and I'm going to double back through that last purple bead we did, like so. Then another blue bead, and through the next purple bead. Repeat that again, and a final bead for that row. So basically each row we do is going to have 4 stitches in it, and that's going to stop us having this little higgledy-piggledy bit at the end, the way I did on my original. So there are the first 2 rows. So with those 2 formed, it basically just becomes a matter of like putting 4 beads onto each row. So let's see, my next color will be green. And I do recommend a different color for each row so you can keep track of which bead's which, particularly at the start here. It can be just a little tricky. This is honestly such a soothing activity to do as well. Particularly once you get to this point, it's like really fiddly for the first couple of rows, but you get to this point, it's just like, and the next step. So yeah, it's just like a little mini version of my big one. Super fun to roll across surfaces. So I'm just going to finish off by weaving that string through and around. Just tuck it away. Same way you would with crochet, funnily enough. So that's kind of our little starting point today. So if I can make it flat, then I see no reason why I shouldn't be able to make it round. So with that out of the way, I want to use a similar method of sort of weaving 1 bead at a time in a continuous spiral around to see if I can build up a ball or a tube, because as we know, all crochet is just balls and tubes. So I'm going to start with a really long strand. It is white. And I think I'm going to experiment with some of these grey beads, just because the rainbow are really fun to work with. And I want to just do some of my more experimental stuff with some of the more like spare beads that I have lying around. So the first hurdle I have to overcome in trying to create, well, I mean, other than the sounds you can hear upstairs, is how to create that foundation row. I'm going to start by just putting 3 beads on. So there's my 3 there. And now I'm going to try and put 3 more on there, because between those 2 rows, that'd be a magic ring of 6. With the intention being that like each bead represents a stitch. That looks pretty realistic to me. We have sort of a potential little foundation there. I think I can work with that. Now this is only the first of 3 different methods that I want to try, but we'll just carry on now and see if I can't work a row of increases around, because I think that's where it's going to get real tricky. So that would mean I have to thread 2 beads on for every bead around without it losing any kind of integrity. So let's just try this. See, thread management is going to be an issue. Okay, so that's 4 increases. We have 2 more to go on this little thing. Okay, so I fit 6 increases in there around. They are struggling to hold their integrity there. We've got a kind of a wonky little snowflake. I don't know if I'm going to be able to grow this any bigger, but because I'm only going to be doing a test with a very small ball, what I'm going to do now is 2 rows of 12 single crochet around, which just means that I'm going to put one bead into each bead and just see if we can't add the 3rd dimension that's missing to this little shape. And then we'll be trying to shrink it down and close it off. So there is a method, a planned method to this madness. I've gotten all knotted up, but I'm not a quitter. So we're going to unknot it, untangle ourselves, and try and finish it. I have a pretty good idea at the moment though that this is not working, but I have high hopes for my second idea. No. Immediately knotted again. You know what? That kind of worked. Don't get me wrong, it's flatter than I would have expected a ball to be, but it is not the disaster that I thought it was. And I was actually really excited for it to be a disaster, because how awesome does it look when you can actually produce something cool by the end of the video if the first attempt is like a total train wreck. But if you actually look at it, that has, in a very strange way, kind of worked. Kind of makes me want to go back and add some extra rows in and just see if we can't work up to that 3rd dimension. I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm glad I went back and I tried more rows there, because adding additional height does not work. It was an illusion that it was working. So method number 1, I'm happy to say that, first of all, like, there's nothing wrong with the method itself. It's specifically this method when attempting to do a crochet pattern that I'm happy to say not a method that we can really use today. We'll still dress him up and make him cute though. Oh, hang on, here we go. The reveal. Okay, so with the first test method out of the way, that means I'm going to go back and I'm going to try the method that I'm sure a lot of you are already saying, why doesn't she just do this? And that is, I'm going to string the number of beads. Beads just went everywhere. I'm going to string the number of beads I need onto the yarn / string to start with, and just crochet 1 bead into every stitch. And that's kind of going to be our safety. If the other things that I try today don't really work, we're going to make something using that method, because it's pretty much guaranteed to work. It's just we don't know if we're going to like what it looks like until we try it. So we're going to give that a go now. Of course, doing things that way first means that I got to do a little bit of math, because otherwise I'm going to put the wrong number of beads onto the string. So bear with me. That's a lot of beads. The perks of this method is that I don't have to cut off the strand the right size to start with. I can just kind of go with it. So we're just going to kind of go with it. Remind me to do that next time I have trouble sleeping. But look at this. It's glorious, stunning, it's beautiful, so pretty. And this is 294 beads for anyone counting. So yeah, now I just have to like take this and crochet it so that each bead becomes a stitch. Which is a shame really, because it's quite pretty and makes me wonder if I could make little balloon animals using like twists and stuff with it. But I am getting distracted from today's cause. Let's focus. So I went through all the hassle of threading all these beads onto the strand, and I've worked the first 3 rows and I just don't know if I like it. It's a lot more chaotic than I would prefer it to be, but it's also very dense, which could be quite pleasing. It's really hard to identify which stitch is which just because of the sort of the thickness of the strand. I could have done this on actual yarn, so I just don't know if that's a good idea either. I'm honestly getting a little bit stuck with this project. Don't know if I should continue or not, or just move on to method number 3 and see if that kind of sparks a little more joy, as it were. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, I am. That's what we're doing. It's what we are doing. First of all, we are getting in frame. Hello. So I'm going to pop my lovely strand of beads and my weird little bead pom-pom off to one side, and I'm going to give my third idea here a go, just because this one here is a lot of work for what it's coming out as, and I don't know if it's going to be worth it. I'd rather rule out option number 3 before carrying on. So that's what we're going to do instead. So for this method, it's basically, I'm going to take the shape I would do and work each row as though, instead of working it as a round, I'm going to work it as a row. I don't know if that makes sense. And so we'll end up with like a cutout of what the thing should be. And then I should be able to just like wrap it around and stitch the beads together. So it's a way of working flat, which I have some proven success with, you know, but still ending up with something round. So we're going to try that and hopefully that works out. So the thin cotton in this situation isn't working for me, so I'm just going to swap it out for maybe some yarn that I'm a little bit more familiar with, and I'm going to try again. I will not fail. I'm also going to try and thread all these beads just straight onto the yarn so that I don't have to thread them all one at a time, because at least they're all counted out now, so that should speed this whole process up. How did this even happen? I missed a bead. I have to go back. Better to know now. Hyperfocus? Me? Never. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, so going better with the yarn. I have never felt so clumsy with a hook in my hand, or it's been a really long time since I felt this clumsy with a hook in my hand, but it is working up a little bit better. It is significantly easier to do with the yarn than it was with the thread. So at least that's a win. And yeah, I'm just slowly working my way through my rainbow chain. This is really dense though. It might make really good body armor. And where I've managed to do it right and like neatly, we're getting this almost like cool little harlequin check. It's like way less chaotic as I get better at it, which is, you know, I know, shocking, right? Oh no, the battery's about to die. Quick, have a look. Have a look and appreciate. This is where we're up to. Is it worth it? Probably not. Okay, so my phone is charged, and while I was waiting for the phone to charge, I have been trying everything. So I'm a little mad at myself that I didn't film any of it, because honestly, that's kind of the story of this video, is that like nothing I have tried so far has really like worked, and I'm starting to get a little bit stressed about that. And I'm trying to like unpack that feeling a little bit, just because like I don't want to leave things as they are, where all we've really managed to do is create like whatever that is. Whatever that is. But like, you know, it's growing on me. Like I want to make something really cool, but I feel like I'm straying further and further away from things that I know how to do. It's like I don't want to leave this video without having made something that looks cool. I don't want to disappoint you guys. I don't want to disappoint the people who made it this far into this video just to discover it has absolutely no plot. Yeah, so I tried a few different things. I tried working as a flat piece. I even tried, look at this, ready? Look at this. Got all tangled up in a piece of string. I literally mapped the vertical strands and how they would have to flow. Like to make one of my existing put me in frame, to make one of my existing patterns work. And then I did a little test bit and realized, oh, hey, hang on, that doesn't work. I'm still having fun playing with it, but I'm starting to worry that like part of the problem is the beads and part of the problem is me. Because I feel like if these were nice little round tessellating beads, I'd be looking at this and being like, you beauty, I'm really onto something there. But because they're these like strange little square beads, and I'm not very practiced with this particular technique, it's looking a bit rough to me. I've also not picked the greatest base color with the gray there. So like, again, I like, so it does come down to choices too. And with our little star buddy whose eyeball keeps falling out, but I'm actually quite pleased with him to a certain extent. He can't sustain a larger size. So while he's cute. My fidget toy, no complaints, 10 out of 10, you know? So we're going to continue on, and we're going to finish off our little bee friend. And in the meantime, I'm going to try and work out, because like I'm not giving up. I still have a couple of ideas that we can try. But anyway, we'll finish off the bees and then I'll probably chat to you again. Body done, and I'm just gonna give him a couple of little wings and call him. So there we go, finished little bee as promised. So there's our kind of second attempt that I completed, experiments aside. So now I just kind of have to work out how to make something cool for y'all. Oh no. Well, I think that the texture of this lends itself to scales, but only if I don't want anything orderly. It's not orderly enough to be like scratching my brain's wrinkles, if that makes sense. No, that's a horribly grotesque way to put that. But you know what I mean, when like something is just like visually very pleasing. This isn't orderly enough for me to hit that kind of note. Even on rows where like it kind of lapses in and out of it a little bit. On a different base color, that might have actually worked a little better, but it's still just very, very, like, it gets worse when there's increases and decreases, and my patterns tend to involve a lot of those. So I don't know if that's really an option. So the way perler beads tend to work is you build things up in like flat plates. So like you build a layer and then you iron it, and then you build the next layer and you put it on top. I'm wondering if I could do something like that with crochet, just because like it was easy enough to make one little square piece. And like layering little square pieces on top of one another kind of would embrace the perler bead, but also if I constructed it using standard crochet methods, I think it still counts as it will at crochet, because I don't want this to become a full-blown bead thing. I think that does a disservice to what is possible with perler beads in the hands of somebody who is actively using them as perler beads, whereas I am clearly just trying to experiment with them as a crochet medium. I'm not trying to disrespect the craftsmanship that goes into those 3D perler models. I think they're really cool, which is why I want to kind of capture some of that magic for myself. I didn't really think this through. I'm already having problems. I don't really think this through, because for that to work, the beads would have to be lined up, unlike my camera. Better? Vertical. That's a stupid color to try that with. Vertically. And instead, the way I thread them together, they end up horizontal, which is just a different thing. I'm about 5 minutes away from whipping out my iron and just calling it. And just using them the way they are supposed. Ow. Using them the way they are supposed to be used. But that just feels like defeat. I don't want this whole plot to be defeat. My issue is I'm trying to make round shapes. But that's not that hard. Round shapes just sort of need staggered beats. Okay, I think I'm onto something. All right, let's try this. Let's try it. Hello down there. Okay, so if we stagger the beads, let's just say we go maybe 2. Would you guys like an up angle for this so you can see better? I think you might. All right, give me 1 second. There you go. How's that? So yeah, these beads can be staggered. That doesn't mean I have to go for a square shape. It just means that it's going to be staggered. My skills in these have improved over the last sort of, Jesus, don't breathe out too hard, over the last hours of experimentation, because I've been at this for 5 hours now. It's good. Once just right around the time I start to like crack mentally, that's when the fun actually starts. I reckon I could make a little like petal type shape. So let's start there. Let's dump this blue back into the basin. Okay, so yeah, so staggered, rounded shapes, totally possible. Look at me. I just did it. It's a thing. I'm not entirely sure how I did it. I ended up working around in a circle around the outside, but it's still circular-ish. So maybe working in like a staggered grid is the solution here. Now, we're reaching a point in this video where you're probably about ready to feel like I'm wrapping things up. So well, that's just a lot of forehead. That's a lot of forehead. I don't know. I think I've had it for the day. I might just cut and come back tomorrow and try again a little fresher, and we'll just see if anything shakes loose, because it's part of the creative process. Yeah, that's what we'll tell ourselves. Creative process, right? I'm back. I didn't tell you I was coming back. I wasn't sure I believed me either. But I have done a lot of thinking over the last day or so. It's not the next day, but it's still within a certain radius of days. And I think I just needed to get out of that really negative headspace I was falling into last time and just get a little bit of perspective on things. So what we do know from last time is that I have worked out a couple of different ways that we can like use these beads to make something. And so now I kind of just want to take those and see if we can't like combine them all into just one thing. So if I can use all of the methods, I'll feel like I've succeeded today. So where we left off last time, I had worked out how to use the beads to make flat panels. And so I think we're going to start there, because this is giving me kind of like a little wing vibe. And so we're going to steer into that curve, and I'm going to try and use them to make some wings. Okay, so with those done and looking very pretty, I think. I actually really like this color combo. It's just something about it just makes me really happy. And that kind of got the wheels turning. And you know what I've made a lot of? Where are you, buddy? I know you're up there somewhere. Dragons! You can see him there. So we're going to make this fairy dragon using the bead techniques. It's a small enough project, and I've already kind of replaced the wings. And by introducing a heavier crochet component to the main base of it, I'm going to feel a little bit less like a hobby traitor. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And a lot more like a hobby cross-pollinator, which, you know, always to be encouraged. So I've sort of settled on the dragon, not just because of the wings, but because the texture on the bee, it did come out looking just a little bit scaly. And I feel like the more I can steer into the natural characteristics of this medium, the happier I'm going to be with the end result. I got to just stop fighting it and try and work with it. So that means that the next thing that I have to do is thread like hundreds and hundreds of beads onto a strand of yarn. But this time I am going to be careful to pick a color of yarn that actually I don't mind showing, because if you look there, the gray, it bothers me a little bit, just a little bit. So I'll be picking a nicer color to go in the background, and I think I've already got an idea of what that'll be. So I think I'm going to go with this color. It's actually a very soft seafoam green, but it looks very blue on camera, but that's fine. That's fine. I don't know where all these little beads came from. Makes me nervous. I must have spilled them last time. And so it begins. That is 300 beads so far. And that's not all of them. I still need another, what? Hang on. Right, I still need comfortably another 100. As you can tell, I'm slowly picking every blue out of the entire jar. That's okay, the remaining colors are still pretty. So the reason I've paused here is that I've abruptly realized that I want to use an alternate color bead for the eyes and kind of just have them beaded in as we go. But working out how to position those and getting the position for those right is going to be tricky. So I thought I'd stop here and give you all the chance to wish me luck, because sometime in the next 100 beads, I'm going to thread 2 green ones on, and we're going to just do our best to try and make sure those green ones fall in the exact right position. He needs to have beady little eyes after all. Ha! See, I could do a test one and we could know for sure, but instead I just think it's slightly more interesting if I build the tension by winging it. Okay, I've picked the 2 stitches. They're going to be in row 4, and yeah. So here we go, that's 5, and a green one, and then 4, and a green one. There we go. You will focus. Come on now. There we go. The die is cast. Okay, I'm going to try not to make a complete muck of this. Nailed it. Look, I have to say, this is 420 gems. These are 420 beads, give or take 5 or 10. Kind of lost count regarding some of the treble stitches, but we'll deal with that when we get there. All in one strand there. So that's more than 400 beads, right? And look at this jar. Okay, I still have some sitting here in the lid, but just look at this jar. I have to have taken close to 1,000 beads out of this jar so far. Do you think I can tell? I thought I was buying like a crafting material, not an heirloom to pass down to the next 3 generations. I swear it's refilling itself while I sleep. But yeah, now that we've got all of our beads threaded onto our yarn, we're gonna lock you back down into a position, maybe from the top. over on them. Something. Look, I'll find a camera angle that works for both of us, and I'm gonna stitch up the main body of our little lady. Yeah, hopefully that goes relatively seamlessly. Things will be fine, right? Okay. You know what? I think that's looking pretty good so far. They look like they're on either side of the head. The nostrils have been marked out on top. I might have to adjust those on the fly. But in general, I'm pretty happy with that. Okay, so that is what the head currently looks like. The eye positioning is okay. It would have been cooler if I'd thought to line up the back 2 beads behind each of those eyes as well, to give them a little bit more presence. But all in all, I think that's the hardest part of this pattern kind of out of the way. The rest is just about building up, you know, the rest of the body, which doesn't actually have sort of any other like spacing things to worry about. The rest is just in blue, so if I don't use all of the beads, they'll just come off the end when I'm done. So I don't need to like stress about that too much, but in general, I'm pretty pleased with this head. Yeah, the nose is a little like, but like maybe our dragon smelled something weird. Yeah, that happens. Yeah, I'm actually particularly pleased with how the eyebrow ridges worked out there with the various beads sort of distributed along them. I managed to get the beads to sit on the outside of both of those stitches, even though they all worked in the same row in the same direction. So, yay. So yeah, we're just going to sort of pound the rest of this one out now. What? That was a lot more strain on my hands and wrists than just regular crochet was. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was just that I had to hold the hook slightly differently, but it definitely made a difference. And there's one other interesting thing. Hold on a second. So yeah, the other interesting thing that I've noticed, and it makes sense in a certain way, but just the size difference these beads are making. So the yarn that I'm using here is the same size. I'm using the exact same hook, and so I know that the beads are adding width, but I just wasn't prepared for just like how much of a size difference that feels like in person. Like, I'm not holding one of those closer to camera. One is bigger. He has a few bald spots where I didn't quite work out how to do decreases properly with smooth beading. I think by the end of it, I kind of worked it out, but by then it was sort of too late to change what I was doing. So I didn't really bother about that too much. And I deliberately put a bald spot underneath. And I have also gone ahead and made little legs. And I've used yellow beads to give him little claws. So the count worked out there. I think the count worked out okay for the head as well. I think we've already sort of spoken about that. And I made little front arms as well. And I kind of made it a point to try and leave beads off one side of them, to try and make it slightly easier to attach them. I didn't think of that when I was making the body. So hopefully that works out okay. We're going to try that in a second. But one problem with it being the size that it is now is that I'm a little concerned that the wings that I made might be slightly too small. So like that's 1, and then it'd be 2. I don't know, what do you guys think? So I'm going to just throw these pieces together now. And the other thing that I'm doing is, just because I feel like this with its wings encapsulates the techniques that I kind of put into the bee and little, I still love the fidget toy, but I do feel like our lumpy little star friend is kind of getting like lost in all of the action, and I did want to try and make it a point to like use everything that I kind of worked out along the way. So I am sort of partway through making this little 3-dimensional treasure chest, just trying to lean on what the beads want to do rather than forcing them to do what I want them to do. And so getting that finished up as well. So there's like a few different like bits and pieces here for me to do some assembly on, and then I will show you our finished dragon. Oh my gosh. Rah, rah. So now all I have to do is fill it with some treasure. Of course I did that. I've decided I don't want any of the grey or tan in there because I used those colours to make the chest, so that was all for nothing anyway. I have to try again. Goodness knows I've picked every single blue bead out of the available beads already. Put some more yellow and orange in there, that'd be nice. Now, the real question is the dragon made of treasure, or is the treasure made of dragon? They both scream, for they do not know. So yeah, there is my finished dragon with his little treasure chest. He's got kind of a really fun texture to him, actually. Let me know in the comments if you like it. I don't know. I don't know if this is something I'm going to play with again, but I am glad that I tried it out and gave it a real thorough test this time. I actually really like the little treasure chest. But I gotta stop putting beads everywhere. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed just exploring a new medium with me today. I didn't know if we were gonna make it halfway through, but I think we kind of like landed somewhere pretty good at the end. Yeah, see you next week. Okay, bye.